There are people in your life right now who cannot be trusted, and the danger is they're not the ones shouting from rooftops or wearing malice on their face. They're the ones who disguise themselves in charm, in kindness, in helpful gestures, that make you lower your guard, the ones who camouflage their true intentions behind smiles, gentle words, and a quiet, almost invisible form of manipulation. Carl Jung understood this more deeply than most. He didn't just study the mind, he studied what the mind hides, and he warned that the most dangerous people are rarely the obvious aggressors. They're the subtle distortions, the soft disassemblers, the people who blend into the fabric of your trust so well that by the time you realize what they've done, the damage is already woven into your life. They don't always raise their voice. Sometimes they raise your hopes, only to dismantle them from the inside. They don't always insult you directly. Sometimes they praise you while planting seeds of doubt you don't notice until they've taken root. And the reason you keep missing the signs is simple. They're not trying to overpower you with obvious force. They're shaping you quietly, making small adjustments to your thinking, your confidence, your boundaries, until you can no longer tell where you end and they begin. Jung devoted his life to understanding this, not just the persona, the mask we present to the world, but the shadow, the hidden self that operates in secrecy, influencing us in ways we don't consciously recognize. Because the truth is, people don't show you who they really are. They show you what they think will work on you, what will gain your trust, what will bypass your defenses. And if you're not awake to it, you'll give away your time, your energy, your trust, even your love to someone who was never safe to begin with. Jung identified 6 patterns, 6 psychological masks, that at first feel harmless, even beneficial, but over time will quietly erode you from the inside out if you don't see them for what they are. And the first is the chronic victim, the person who lives in a permanent state of suffering, for whom nothing is ever their fault, for whom every problem is someone else's doing. At first, you feel compassion. You listen to their stories of betrayal. You offer your support. You step in to help them find their footing. But slowly, you notice a pattern. The crisis never ends. There's always a new villain in their story, a new injustice, a new reason why they can't move forward. Jung saw this clearly. People who live in a constant state of victimhood are often using it as a shield against accountability. Because if you are always the victim, you never have to admit your own faults, never have to change, never have to confront your own shadow. The chronic victim wields their pain like a weapon, guilt-tripping you into loyalty, twisting reality until helping them feels like an obligation. And here's the dangerous part. They don't actually want healing, they want control. Healing would mean losing the only source of power they know, your pity. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself feeling guilty for being happy, for being stable, for not sharing in their brokenness. Jung warned that when someone fuses their identity with their suffering, they have likely fused with their shadow, the part of them that thrives on emotional manipulation under the guise of helplessness. And unless you distance yourself, you'll start carrying a burden that was never yours to bear. Then comes the charming mirror. Jung called this the persona trap, the person who reflects back exactly what you want to see. They agree with your opinions, laugh at your jokes, validate your insecurities, applaud your dreams. At first, it feels intoxicating. You think you've found your biggest supporter, maybe even a soulmate in friendship or love. But after a while, something feels off. You realize you don't actually know anything about them. Their real beliefs, their real feelings, their real struggles. Because they're not showing you themselves. They're showing you you, They've studied your language, your energy, your emotional needs, and they mirror them back to gain your trust. Jung warned that when someone over-identifies with their persona, the mask becomes everything, and the true self remains hidden, untouchable, unaccountable. The charming mirror is dangerous precisely because they feel safe, but there's nothing behind the mask. No core values, no loyalty, no real self to connect to, only the ability to adapt, to impress, to blend. And the moment you stop admiring them, the moment you stop feeding their need for approval, they disappear, or worse, they turn against you because they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the reflection you provided. You didn't meet them, you met a performance. And trusting someone like that is like shaking hands with smoke. Then there's the passive-aggressive enabler, the one who doesn't attack you head-on, who never openly says you can't do this, but instead erodes your confidence, drop by drop. They nod when you tell them your dream, but later slip in comments like, "That's ambitious," "I just don't want you to be disappointed," or "You're so brave for trying that," "I don't think I'd risk failing like that." Sounds supportive, right? But Jung called this the hidden shadow of the helper. These people undermine you under the disguise of concern. They present fear as logic, judgment as maturity, doubt as love, and if you're not conscious of it, you'll internalize their limitations as your own. Jung saw the danger clearly. The enabler's goal isn't to lift you up, it's to make sure you never outgrow them. Because if you succeed without them, they lose their grip, their relevance, their unspoken role in your life. So they clip your wings early, all while calling it protection. And the longer you listen, the more you'll believe their limits are reality. Then we have the secret competitor, the person who pretends to be on your team, who smiles at your wins, who congratulates you while secretly tallying the score. Jung believed this type is driven by unconscious inferiority. They don't hate you, they resent what you reflect in them, their own unrealized potential. They copy your ideas, repackage them as their own, offer backhanded compliments, and only cheer for you when they're ahead. You feel it in the tension, in the forced praise, in the subtle one-upmanship. And when you fail, they won't gloat, but they will feel relief, masked as concern. "I was afraid this might happen. I tried to warn you," Jung warned. Never trust someone who can't clap when it's not their turn to win. And then comes the spiritual narcissist, the wise one. They present themselves as enlightened, grounded, above ego. They speak softly, quote philosophy, use the language of healing, alignment, and mindfulness. But Jung would call this a split psyche, the conscious mind clinging to spiritual identity while the shadow leaks out as quiet superiority and judgment. They dominate not by force, but by always being the calm one, making you feel reactive, unhealed, or spiritually inferior whenever you challenge them. You can't win an argument because they'll reframe your emotion as proof of your work still to do. It feels like wisdom, but it's a power play. They maintain authority by keeping you small, dependent on their supposed clarity. Jung warned that many who claim to have killed the ego have simply dressed it in robes and crystals. Finally, the empathic controller, the one who feels everything, who senses moods, reads your energy, comforts you in ways that feel like deep connection. But over time, you find yourself managing their emotions more than your own. You hold back your frustration so you don't hurt them. You adjust your tone so you don't disturb them. Jung wrote that many who identify as highly sensitive are projecting unhealed chaos outward and demanding the world reorganize around their wounds. This is where empathy becomes a cage. They don't want connection, They want emotional safety at your expense. And if you fail to meet it, you're the villain. Suddenly, you're insensitive, cold, unstable. Before you realize it, your identity revolves around keeping them stable, a form of psychological submission masquerading as love. Jung's advice: walk away, because people like this will never say they're dangerous. They'll say they're just feeling too much. And unless you are deeply rooted in yourself, you will start to believe them. These 6 patterns exist because, as Jung said, these people never met their shadow. They never faced the manipulative, controlling, or insecure parts of themselves. So they project them outward and make you carry them. And if you don't recognize it, you'll think you're just unlucky in relationships, when in truth, you're being mirrored. Because here's the brutal truth: you attract what you haven't integrated. If you keep finding yourself with manipulators, part of you is still afraid to stand in your truth. If you keep finding yourself surrounded by victims, part of you needs to be needed to feel worthy. Jung's solution was simple but not easy. Integrate your shadow. Stop repressing your anger, your intuition, your boundaries. Because when you bury those, you bury your defenses. And when you bury your defenses, you open the door to the people who will quietly consume you. He didn't want you cold. He wanted you whole. He wanted you whole. That means not pretending your trust should be infinite. Not pretending patience is always noble. Not pretending love means giving everyone access. Some people are not growing. They're just adapting their mask to survive. And unless you value your inner alignment over outer harmony, you'll keep bending for people who wouldn't stretch for you. So audit your circle. Who drains you? Who confuses you? Who makes you explain your worth? If they need constant context to treat you right, they're not confused. They're avoiding accountability. Withdraw without guilt. Let your shadow speak. Let yourself say no. Get angry. Question intentions. Stop explaining your boundaries. The right people will respect them. The wrong ones will argue them. Trust what you felt the first time. Because the people Jung warned us about don't arrive with warnings. They arrive with charm, empathy, alignment. But time always tells, and when it does, you'd better be far enough away that the truth costs you nothing. Jung's final message: don't fear the world. Fear ignoring your own knowing. Because once you integrate your shadow, you become someone no manipulator can reach. No narcissist can fool. No competitor can rattle. Awake, whole, and impossible to trick.